Hello world, Shelly here, and today it's time for your Friday Foundation Fix, where you can get your fix of foundation reviews in between foundation fests. And today I am bringing you a find from the drugstore. I was going through CVS yesterday and I stumbled across a new release from Revlon. This is their Age Defying 3X foundation. And the Age Defying line is not new with Revlon, but this 3X version of the foundation is. And I'm looking at Revlon's website because I cannot find this foundation anywhere else. I can't find it on Ulta, so it's that new. And let me tell you a little bit about what they tell us, and it's not much. It comes in 12 different shades. They don't have the retail price on there. I believe it was just over $12. I want to say I paid like $12.79 for it because there was an extra bucks deal if you spent $12. So I think it was 12 bucks and at full price anyway. The description is the Tri-Shield technology delivers the age preventative benefits of a hydrating moisturizer, a smoothing serum, and a radiance primer in one potent formula. It's available in 12 shades, protects with SPF 20, and it's a multi-benefit makeup that firms, lifts, hydrates, and covers. And that's really about all the information I've got on this foundation. So I picked it up because you know I cannot resist a new foundation launch, and because it's the Age Defying line, I'm thinking that it will hopefully be good for maturing skin. I am now 43 years old. Yes, I had a birthday. I am an October birthday, and I have some fine lines around my eyes. I've got lines on my forehead. I have deep smile lines. I have some lines under my chin. I have some sunspots to cover up. I have patchiness around my nose. I do have pretty doggone dry skin, and I have always had dry skin my whole life, but as your skin gets older, you tend to lose moisture in your skin, even if you weren't always a dry-skinned person. So I feel like if anything's gonna work for me, it'll be the age-defying stuff, because it seems like it is intended for this kind of audience and maturing skin. So let's take a look at some swatches of this foundation compared to others in my collection. I've got this in the shade Fresh Ivory, which is the lightest shade that they currently have, but it's numbered 05. So I wonder if they do plan to expand this line and add some lighter shades down the road. I don't know, just guessing. That would be cool. Let's check out some swatches. All right, let's swatch. First up is today's foundation, the Revlon Age Defying 3X, and this is in the shade 05 Fresh Ivory. Next is the Revlon Color Stay. This is in the shade 110. Third up, we've got the new Milani Conceal and Perfect in 00A. Fourth is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation in Rose Ivory. And last up, I've got the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Glow in shade 201 Classic Ivory. These are all really nicely cool toned. The warmest here, closest to neutral I would say, is the Milani, which is still on the cool end of neutral, but these are all pretty good color matches for me. And let's hear it for the drugstore, finally getting in on some pale skin action. I've already cleansed, moisturized, and sunscreened my face. I have primed with the Smashbox Photo Finish Primer. This is the primerizer version, which is a combination of primer and moisturizer. It definitely helps add moisture underneath most foundations I have tried it with. I don't know that it does a ton in terms of extending wear time or blurring anything, but it's got hyaluronic acid and niacinamide in it, which are great skincare ingredients for anti-aging. Niacinamide is also really good for minimizing pores, so maybe it is doing some of that, but there's some good skincare stuff in there, so I really like this one lately, especially as the drier weather is approaching. I'm going to go in with a sponge on one side. This is the Miracle Complexion Sponge by Real Techniques, and a brush on the other side. This is my Artis Oval 7. We'll see if I have a preference. Now, in terms of packaging, we get 1 fluid ounce of product in a nice glass bottle. We have a pump. Oh, and it's so nice when you get something from the drugstore and it's actually sealed. Nobody has, like, totally messed with it. Or I hate when that happens. There we go. Nice hygienic pump. I usually go in with 2 pumps of foundation to start, so let's see what that does. Kind of thick formula. This is blending out super easy. Pretty light coverage with the sponge, I would say. I think we're definitely getting better coverage with a brush. Either side I think looks good in terms of the finish, but in terms of coverage, if you are looking for fuller coverage, I think the brush is going to be the way to go. So let's try another pump or so and see if we can build this up just a little bit. I think this built up really nicely. I did not use all of that third pump, so it doesn't take much product to get to what I would call a solid medium coverage at this point. It's high medium. It's really a nice medium coverage. I don't really see my freckles popping through. I feel like it looks a little bit clingy to the dryness around my chin. Not too bad. Everything, my cheeks look pretty smooth. My pores look pretty good. They're not being emphasized. I would love them to be blurred more than they are, but isn't that the story of my life? My nose looks really good. Nothing settling into the pores there. Forehead looks fine. Nothing seems to be settling into any lines at this point. I would say this is a nice sort of satin finish. I think I am going to set it. It still feels a little bit tacky, but overall I think it's a nice satin finish. It's almost dewy, but not quite dewy. It seems to be a flattering sort of a finish for maturing skin. So, all right, Revlon, I think the color is just maybe a smidge too dark for me, but that's also the story of my life, especially when it comes to drugstore foundations on the pale end of the spectrum. Let me go put the rest of my face on and we'll see how this does. Time right now is 2:43. I'm back. So far, so good. This foundation, everything blended out really nice on top of it. I think the color match is surprisingly nice for a drugstore foundation on me. It is still sort of heavy and sort of separating along the deeper wrinkles around my mouth, but it's not settling into lines and it's not really accentuating texture or wrinkles elsewhere. It's just this sort of separation along the deeper lines, especially on the corner of my mouth here. So that is where we are at so far. I'm going to go about my day. I will give you guys a daylight check-in in a few hours, and then I'll come back at the end of the night for my final thoughts. Hey guys, I forgot to do the daylight check-in, so I'm going to give you guys a bathroom light check-in just so you can see how this foundation looks in, you know, indoor, sort of not glaring white light in my face like my ring light is. And I think the foundation is a really good color match. It might be half a shade darker than it was when we started out, but it's very minimal. If it did oxidize at all, it's pretty minimal, and it is a pretty good shade match for me. I think I look pink. I always look pink. That's where shades end up looking weird on me because my neck is always looking pink. But in terms of how it's holding up, I'll try to keep the shadow out of the way. I think from a distance, everything looks good. Up close, it's starting to look a little bit heavy. It's wearing off on my chin a bit. I also forgot to tell you what time it is. We're at about the 5-hour mark right now. And so, I mean, other than the fact that I just gouged a big gouge into my forehead, I think it's just starting to look a little bit heavy and it's starting to break down just a little bit, but pretty normal for a drugstore foundation. And at a distance, it still looks all right, I think. So that's where we're at. I'll be back later on tonight and wrap up. Hello again. It is 11 o'clock and that puts us just past the 8-hour mark. So let's see how this Revlon 3X Age Defying stood up. Not much has changed since the 5-hour mark, so it's still breaking down and looking a little bit cakey on my chin and my mouth, and the corners of my nose, around my nostrils, is sort of wearing away and caking up. but honestly, everything else really stayed in place. My nose looks decent. It's just starting to get a little bit heavy, but my cheeks look good. I can still see my blush, contour, highlight. My forehead looks fine. It's even not really doing anything strange in between my eyebrows, which usually foundation does kind of cake up there. I think color-wise, it may have shifted maybe a half shade darker. It didn't really oxidize a ton, but I think it is a little bit darker than when I first put it on, just because I can see where I brought it down my neck. But overall, I don't know which cat is in the background. Somebody's knocking things over. Overall, this foundation really has not settled into my fine lines. It hasn't settled into my pores. It is starting to get that sort of almost where you can see the pores more accentuated at this point in the night, but really, this is not bad at all. I think if you have mature skin, this is definitely a possibility. If you have dry skin, I think it's also a possibility. I don't feel like this is a particularly hydrating formula. My skin does still feel a tiny bit dry, but not really any worse than it did when I started out the day. So I think if you've got dry skin, you can definitely go ahead and give this a shot. With 12 shades, it's not the most extensive shade range. I'd love to see more, but like I said, the lightest is currently number 5, so maybe they do have plans to add more to this range. Now, you know, I shouldn't be surprised. Revlon actually has some really good foundations. The Color Stay foundation is one of my favorites in terms of just a really reliable long wear foundation. And that Youth FX that they came out with recently was actually pretty good too. A little bit heavy. I think I like this a little bit more, but you know, good on you, Revlon. You got some good foundations going on here. So if I had to give the Age Defying 3X a grade, what would I give it? You know, I was thinking at the 5-hour mark that if it continued to degrade the way I expected, that I'd be looking CC+, but honestly, I don't think it got worse since the 5-hour mark. So I'm going to go B-. We interrupt this broadcast with a breaking news segment. I'm going to upgrade the score of this foundation. I have been wearing this foundation a lot over this past week, and I have found that with the new e.l.f. Beauty Shield primer, the SPF 50 primer, I can get a good 12 hours of wear out of this foundation without it breaking up too bad. It's a really nice color match for me, so I'm going to give it a full letter grade bump. This is going to be an A-. Woohoo! I think this performs slightly above average, especially for a drugstore foundation and on skin that has fine lines and dryness. I think it works. I think it works pretty well with, you know, the usual caveats. So there you have it. Revlon Age Defying 3X. I'm giving it a B-. Good job, Revlon. This is one that might be worth trying out. If you'd like to see some more foundation reviews and you like this one, give me a thumbs up down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to leave me comments on what foundations you would like to see. You could always search Geek Out of Water and the name of the foundation to see if I've reviewed it yet. I've got 50+ reviews on my channel at this point. Lots of foundations have been tested. Lots more are to come. I got a bin full of them, so I will keep them coming. There's your Friday foundation fix. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for taking some time out of your day to geek out over makeup with me. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys all have an awesome day or night wherever you are in the world. Take care of each other. Bye-bye.